Peace and love, beautiful people. It's your girl Karina. I guess I have to rotate my device. It's telling me I have to rotate it. So it is a rainy day in Brooklyn, and I'm here with the family. We had a full day inside, but I've been meditating on this idea, this concept of the chosen ones, and I have a video on my channel called the Messiah Seeds, in which this is kind of connected to that idea and concept because in the concept of the chosen ones, right? The idea of the Messiah seeds, I got that from another astrologer. His name is 13 Signs. And he talks about how in your astrology chart, there might be certain places that would show that you are a Messiah seed, okay? And I discovered that in patterns of certain individuals that when you combine Saturn and Jupiter, that you could be a sure significant of igniting Messiah seed energy. Okay. So this is a branch conversation off of that topic. And if you want to know more about Messiah seeds, then I will put the link to that video in the description after the live. And I'll also probably link it in the video so that you can check that out. And I did that a few years ago. So, I'm very passionate about the idea of generations. And in fact, that's kind of what got me into astrology was the conversation about the purpose of generations. So today I wanted to talk to you guys about the chosen ones, right? Who are the chosen ones? And in my theory, I think that everybody's capable of being the chosen ones, right? So, what are the chosen ones? It's a group of people that feel like they have a divine purpose to help the world through a great awakening or help the world through a major shift or a major ascension. And in the year 2020, while we've dealt with a lot of difficulties, I think that the chosen ones, right, the people who really feel like their purpose is within divine order, are really coming out of the woodworks, are coming out of the soil and growing in their own ways. So I wanted to talk about the idea of the chosen ones and the correlation to Pluto. Because when you look at the outside planets, right, which are Uranus, Pluto, Neptune, right, these planets, while they can be used for personality definitions in a birth chart, what they really speak to is the generation that you're born in. Okay, so these planets are very strong in identifying what the people, like the group of people, your peers, and even beyond, what you guys all as a group within like a 10-year span have come to do. So I wanted to talk to you guys about looking at the chosen ones in the concepts of generations and how each generation is a part of a divine order, that they bring to the table something that we all need. And they bring knowledge and change and transformation, right? So, like I said, when it comes to the chosen ones and the concept of the chosen ones, they're here because they are here to help the universe and specifically the humans on Earth through a specific change. Okay. And so this is why I'm choosing Pluto, because Pluto is a planet of change. It's a planet of transformation ruling over Scorpio, divine, uh, basically Phoenix rising from the ashes, the concept of having to cocoon yourself and go through some sort of metamorphosis and come out even better than you have before. And so all of the planets that are generational, that are outside Uranus, Pluto, Neptune, they could all speak to a certain generation. But this is why I wanted to choose Pluto, because Pluto is about death and life and rebirth. Pluto is about change and transformation. And so if we're talking about the purpose of the chosen ones being here to help the human beings on earth and the souls on earth go through a very big change, then why not look at Pluto to be a catalyst for us. So I wanted to talk specifically about the different generations born under Pluto. And what I want to do, because I have my ephemeris here, is this is an ephemeris that shows you the planets, and this is Pluto. And you'll see that Pluto is currently in Capricorn. I don't know if you guys can see that. Right? So Pluto's in Capricorn. And because Pluto's in Capricorn, it's actually making a trine to the generation that was born with Pluto in Virgo. So I want to start with that generation because some of the people that are born in that generation are our parents. Also, Obama, President Obama is born. Obama is born with the Pluto and Virgo generation. Let me just double check that, but I'm pretty sure about that. And so the Pluto in Virgo generation is the generation I'm going to start with because they are still very strong, active adults in society today. And, I think a lot of people have the misconception that it's just the youth or it's just like Generation X or it's just like Generation X to Generation Z. Like they don't think that it could be anybody born before then, but it has to be because we're all here in this together, right? So let me just look up Obama. And then once I confirm that with Obama, because I talk about Obama in my Messiah Seed video as well. Okay. And I'm just confirming, yes, he's born with Pluto at 6 degrees in Virgo. So our parents, right, are they're from this Pluto and Virgo generation. All right. So this is where I want to start. Okay, so the Pluto and Virgo generation, these are the people who were born from 1958 to 1971. Okay, these people are now between the ages of 38 and 53 years old. So this is what I mean by the outside planets. Pluto moves very slowly. Um, so these people are almost a range of about 15 years. Okay, so it takes Pluto 248 years to go around the entire zodiac. Yeah. So these people who are born with Pluto and Virgo, they have been going through a trine with Pluto. Okay. And I want to speak to that specifically right now because what we're going through in 2020 is the COVID coronavirus. I'm afraid to say it because people's videos get taken down talking about it. But in relationship to that in astrology, right, the whole pandemic has been around this idea of health. Okay, Virgo is a sign of health. So people who are born with Pluto and Virgo, they're being very much so ignited during this time, during this ascension, during this awakening, because their entire generation is about health. It's about going to the doctor, taking care of your body, right? That's Virgo energy, making sure everything within inside and out is clean and clear. That's why Virgo rules over the intestines, and it has a lot to do with eating healthy and going to the bathroom. The Virgo Pisces axis is all about that, right? So when we are looking at the Pluto and Scorpio generation, I'm sorry, Pluto and Virgo between the 1958 and 1971, these people are considered the chosen ones in my idea, in my opinion, because they have a purpose in being a part of what we're going through today. They have a lot of them are being targeted, in fact, because if they're not awakened and if they're not about the divine awakening of the human, souls on earth, then they're going to be targeted during this time. Um, they're going to be the ones suffering with a lot of worry, a lot of anxiety. They're going to be the ones suffering with a lot of, sickness, because we're in anxiety and sickness. That's all related to the stomach area. Um, so Pluto and Virgo is being very much so triggered at this time, specifically those who were born a little bit later. Let's see if I can pull up. So they say 1971. So Let's look at 1969. Yeah, so 19, if you're born like in 1967 to 1969, they're even more, um, they're being trined exactly from where Pluto is today to where Pluto was when they were born. Those who were born within like the last of the 60s, right? So these people, they have a divine purpose and they're a part of the chosen ones because they are the ones who are called to be able to see past their own worry and nervousness and be able to bring the concepts and ideas of cleaner eating and of better foods, of better quality foods. They're the ones who have the message of taking care of your bodies, and they're the ones who are coming with the information on how to eat cleaner. Hold on, I just want to look up something right quick. Okay, so there are definitely people outside of this generation who has that information too. But the people who were born with Pluto and Virgo, right? So the people who were born with Pluto and Virgo, their role in the chosen ones is to be able to identify truly a healthy way of living and lifestyle. And this is essential because a lot of what we have faced, right? Especially within the last maybe 30 to 50 years. And if anybody wants to correct me and tell me if that's right or wrong, is really, especially in America, we've dealt with a lot of bad eating habits, really bad care of food, bad, not very good quality food, especially in more poverty stricken areas. So the Pluto and Virgo generation, they are essential to the ascension because of their abilities to want to transform the way that we have been treating our foods, taking care of our foods, growing our foods, and eating our foods. So at this very time, they are one of the people who are healing us through the modality of food service, but they're also a lot of them will be the types that are nurses and doctors and, and service oriented towards us. Okay. One person who is currently running for vice president, Kamala Harris, she's also born with Pluto and Virgo. So these people are alive and well, and they are definitely a part of the chosen ones. They all have a divine purpose, even if you don't agree with the things that they stand for. You have to understand that everybody has a different role in the ascension. And when we come from this idea of good and bad or black and white, what's right and what's wrong, a lot of us can get lost because you're going to need opposition in order for ascension to happen because opposition helps to refine you. Opposition helps you to redefine what it is that your real purpose is. And if you have so much support and not enough opposition, then you might actually be clouded by a lot of illusions. Okay. And this is also a big message from those born with Pluto and Virgo, because they are, Virgo is a mind, a sign that has a lot to do with the lower mind. When you're dealing with Pluto, you're dealing with deep, deep research, right? So these people are also here to clean out that lower mind, to understand that opposition is important, to understand that, a lot of Virgo energy can be enemies because of the, there's like a discernment with Virgo. There's like a bit of an unhappiness with Virgo, never satisfied, always looking for even more perfection with Virgo. And so people who are born with Pluto and Virgo, that's what they're striving for, right? And so they definitely bring that message of not being illusioned by putting people on a pedestal and idolizing people and idolizing concepts and ideas without sure opposition, just to make sure that what you say is true, what you say is honest, what you say is pure. Okay, so Pluto and Virgo, a lot of them have that energy behind them. Okay, this is also why they also bring out a lot of things that maybe we don't necessarily find to be very pleasant. They may not be very pleasant. They may not be a very pleasant generation, unless Of course, if they have personality placements, like for instance, Obama, who has like the sun in Leo, so you're going to have a more pleasant demeanor, a more playful demeanor. But a lot of the energy with them is this undercurrent of displeasing energy, right? Of not being good enough, of wanting more, of wanting even better outcomes, right? And either they want it from us or we want it from them. That comes a lot from the Pluto in Virgo generation. Okay? For anybody who's joining, just to remind you that this generation is born from around 19 Pluto and Virgo 1958 to 1971. Okay? Um they are really big on rejecting materialism. They're really about the purity of getting things to this place of cleanliness and not mediocre. And this also is what makes them discerning, critical, and not pleasing, right? But there's a lot that they bring to the table. So, like I said, people who were born, especially within 1968 to 1969, 1970, 1971, towards the end of the Pluto and Virgo generation, they're being trined right now by Pluto and Capricorn. So, a lot of these people are coming forward and they're going to be of major players in the activation of higher quality living. Okay. So don't sleep on this generation. They're here and they are the chosen ones in many regards and many aspects. So I just wanted to. Hi, Melissa. I'm going to get to Pluto and Libra next, actually. Okay. So that's Pluto and Virgo. And please understand that when I speak about chosen ones, when I think about chosen ones, they may not even be as conscious to the idea that they are the chosen ones. Some people are, but some people they may not be as conscious to that idea. And so, with that being said, a lot of people who were born with Pluto and Virgo are being targeted right now by the pandemic. They're being targeted energetically wise as far as dealing with worry, dealing with nervousness, insomnia. These are all major mercurial unhealthy things, okay? And because their generation is being trined by that Capricorn, either they're going to be able to overcome these things and help others overcome it, or they might be succumbing to these things. So look out for your Pluto and Virgo people and make sure check out on them. Make sure they're sleeping well. Make sure that they're eating well. Make sure that they're being well taken care of. Hi, Tamara. Welcome, because they are being highly activated at this very time. Okay. Okay. So those are the chosen ones, Pluto and Virgo. So let's talk about Pluto and Libra generation. Okay. So one of the things with Pluto and Libra is that Pluto is an energy of endings, death and rebirth. Okay. Libra is an energy of marriage and commitment and partnerships. So, what we find and what you did find in history is the fact that people who are born with Pluto and Libra, a lot of them in this generation experience the true weight of divorce. Okay. The people who were born between 1971 and 1984 have the most experiences, downfalls, and this is kind of the catalyst generation of divorce. Before then, divorce probably was less acceptable, and during this time, divorce became even more popular and more acceptable and growing in percentage number wise as far as how often it was happening. Because this generation is about looking for the true pleasantness of relationships, meaning really being happy in partnerships and not settling until they really discover that. Pluto's an energy of power. And so this generation is big on showing up with powerful connections and knowing the powerful connections they can make with people. And this is what leads them to catapult themselves into society and into the world as very successful. Now, clearly, not everybody who's born under this have dealt with success, and that's because Pluto is either gain of power or loss of power, right? Because within that metamorphosis and that period of death and rebirth, or that period of transition, some falter to the idea of losing someone, right? And they can't live beyond that. And some thrive, right? And some thrive off of finding new partnerships, or some find off of rebirthing their current partnerships, okay? Because remember, Pluto being rebirth, sometimes it's sometimes it's not about ending a relationship and starting a new one. That is one option, but other options is this: there's something about this relationship that's dead. We're going to end it and then rebirth this relationship into something brand new. Okay, so those who were born between 1971 and 1984, a lot of these people are the chosen ones because of their ability to understand that as social beings, human beings, even our social ability is looking to be going through its own ascension. Even our ability to relate to one another is desiring to be improved and upgraded as we as a human race upgrade and improve. So a lot of these people are making it their duty to very much so bring in a higher level, a level of genuine and honest relationships. These are the people who also may have done things that weren't typical before that, which before that in relationships, when it comes to looking deep into the psychology of why does one attract another, and what are the psychologies, and even using astrology to bring relationships, the right relationships together, right? Or understanding your partner through the likes of divinations like astrology and tarot and numerology and things like that. So this generation, because Pluto is the investigator, right? This Pluto is a deep research, right? So this generation is deeply researching their partners, deeply researching one another, okay? And then Libra being a sign of beauty, this generation is also big on bringing the beauty into the world. And that's why the chosen ones of this generation, born between 1971 and 1984, a lot of these people are the big mainstream idols, right? This generation brought some big mainstream idols. Now, yes, there were great celebrities before them, but there's something about the people who were born within this generation who brought it to almost this level of worshiping people almost to the place of godliness. And why is that? That's because Libra is a sign of social status. Libra is big on wanting that social status, okay? This is why Libra, the Libra ruled by Venus, is happy in Saturnian signs like Capricorn and Aquarius, because Capricorn rules over your career and Aquarius rules over social organizations and social status, right? And the elevation of social status. Libra, being a Venus sign, really works to find its place and to be around the right types of people in order to elevate their social status. So when you have Pluto and Libra, the chosen ones in this generation really were able to elevate artistic expression and build themselves up in the means of almost being at the top of almost almost being at the level of a human being a god or being worshipped as a god. This is one of the things that Pluto and Libra brought to the table. Now, like I said, it's really important to understand that everybody plays a role. And while we're on this discussion of the chosen ones, a lot of people might think, oh, well, the chosen ones, they're the people who are going to elevate and ascend, but they're not all playing for the same team. They're not all going to be doing what you consider is right. So a lot of people might find this idea of the fame monster being big in the Pluto and Libra generation. This generation brought that concept. And at the same time, while they brought this concept, um, there are things that we learned about elevating humans above other humans. There's things that we learned about being eye to eye with God and idols and worships. And part of us learned that we don't want to look up to another human being who has just as much flaws as we do. And then a part of us also learned that through this generation we learned that we can be like God. We could be one with God. We can see ourselves as godly and goddesses, right? So there's a lot here that is happening within this generation in which we are elevating our relationships to one another and really starting to see who are we beyond just a lower tier, beyond just service oriented, beyond just having a job and working 9 to 5. What else could we be? What bigger things could we become? And what is the good and the bad that comes with that, right? And everybody plays a very distinct role in that. And this is why Pluto and Libra generation, a lot of these people are very big on yeah, there's a lot of crime, there's there's drugs, there's what does it call it? Rock and roll, sex and drugs. There is all of that that's really building up to its like highest potential during this time. Okay. And this is why, as we look at the Pluto and Libra generation as they were born, growing up in hindsight of 2020 vision, we can see that those who were born, the chosen ones born in the Pluto and Libra, are major catalysts in one being the ones that rocked people to sleep, being the ones that put a lot of people in a lower class because of the concepts of a human being idolized. A lot of that was happening as well, right? When we have the ideas of, a lot of these people were the ones who were breaking up relationships, having side chicks, this is where this generation, this is where it comes from, right? This idea of being going beyond what we have known so far and what is perfect with one another, how we relate to one another. So when we relate to one another, some of us are starting to see people as bigger and better than others. And of course, that was happening before, but it became even more at its height during the Pluto and Libra generation. This is where we have celebrities that are worshipped like gods, right? And then we also have just relationships where people were felt obligated to stay with one another in marriages. During Pluto and Libra, we have more of the coming out of the fact that we have a side chick, that we have a mistress. That people may have always had side chicks and mistresses and cheated on their partner beforehand, but it was deeply looked down upon before this generation, where in the Pluto and Libra generation it was more embraced, that these are kinds of the ways that we relate to one another. And so all this came out. This is what Pluto brought out to the surface of our relationships, and the way that we related to one another started to change. And you see some toxic habits here, right? But also it was necessary because staying in a relationship just because it's the right thing to do wasn't working. And so this is why this generation are the chosen ones, because they shook up, they brought the shaking to what is okay to do in a relationship and what is not, right? And so it's kind of like pure chaos happening in this time, right? And that trickles over into the next generation. But this is the generation that are kind of the ones that we look to today in 2020 as the ones that we're looking are who effed up our lives, who maybe had a lot of influence over our lives, who maybe put on a front that they were bigger or better, who may have flashed to you that they make a lot of money when they don't, who may have lied to you about what true love is. These are more of the obviously the more darker sides that I'm saying. There's a lot of good that comes out of this, but I'm talking about this idea of the chosen ones and how we are not. It's not all about this idea of angels and devils. It's kind of like a mix of everything. Everybody has a role to play. Some people are meant to play the ones that you love and adore, and some people are meant to play the ones that you don't. Okay, and that's what I'm saying about all of these generations. And Pluto and Libra are one of the ones that really bring the angel and the devil, because when we look at Libra, we have that duality of justice, but also the need of pleasures coming from Venus. And then Venus's natural ability to want status in the world, that also comes with this placement. Okay, hi everyone. Thank you so much. Pluto and Scorpio is coming next. Sweet. Pluto and Libra started the single parent home epidemic, seems like. Yes, Whitney, I think that, I mean, I don't have the actual stats on that, but that's where that comes from with the Pluto death to marriage and relationships. And so divorce is embraced at this time. Yeah. Okay, guys. All right. So now we're moving into Pluto and Scorpio. And this is the generation that I'm born into, and probably a good amount of you who vibe with me are born into too. Okay. Pluto and Scorpio, this generation. Okay, so Pluto and Libra and Pluto and Scorpio both encompass the millennials, but Pluto and Scorpio clearly encompasses a bigger portion of the millennials. Okay, so let's pull up the information on Pluto and Scorpio. Okay, so those who were born with Pluto and Scorpio, because Pluto does retrogrades, it actually overlaps with Libra. Okay, so those who were born between 1983 and 1995, right, are the Pluto and Scorpio generation. Okay, now this generation is the death generation. This generation is the one that brings out the darkest possibilities when it comes to sex and death, right? So within this generation, we find deep um, issues of abuse that come out and come to the surface. Because when we look at Pluto, Pluto's deep researcher, okay? It's deep research. So, like, Mercury is a researcher too, it's like curious, but Pluto goes deep into the psyche. It brings everything, all the gunk up to the top. So, when we're talking about, we're bringing this idea of Pluto and its role with the chosen ones, right? The chosen ones are here to help the world change. Well, how do they help the world change? Using Pluto, they help the world change by bringing up toxic traits and habits that have been holding us down. So the Pluto and Scorpio generation, these are the ones who have a lot of the burden of experiencing some of the deepest and darkest concepts of sex, sexual abuse, um, and sexual, like specifically even like within families, but sexual abuse across the topic of sexual abuse, which would even include sex trafficking, pedophilia, and all of those things. These things come out in the woodworks with the Pluto and Scorpio generation. This generation is big on looking at the concept of death, and this is why this generation is the one that brings up the true questioning of the major mainstream religions, because all religions are based off of the afterlife and death. All religions are kind of created to get people to have a relationship with the afterlife and death that makes them be able to live life in some sort of quote unquote peace. So, with the Pluto and Scorpio generation, these people may have dealt with a lot of death to the concepts of religion and changing up religion in the sense of how do we how truthful are the structures of religion helping me to actually live life, live as well as I want to live? And what is my relationship to the afterlife, which comes out more in the woodworks with the Pluto and Scorpio generation. So this is where we also find more psychics and people who have mediumships with people, mediumships is coming out more with this generation. People who are more looking to communicate with the afterlife, that's coming out of the woodwork. So it's been there before, but it becomes more out. It comes out more with the chosen ones of the Pluto and Scorpio generation. Okay. No, let me just see, because everybody's is the chat is starting to get hype now. Okay. All these secret sex issues relating to children. Yes. So you guys can see that that is happening now, but this has been growing, and it's because of the Pluto and Scorpio generation and where they are in age at this point, right? So that this is why it's coming out big right now. Those who are born with the Pluto and Scorpio generation, a lot of them had experienced these sexual abuse situations themselves, or maybe were like witness to it. Some of them are also bringing out the pedophilia, bringing the, because of the age that they are today, are able to bring this out to the surface. Hi, Whitney. Thank you so much for checking out the little videos. I have more little videos coming out. I see that you guys like me talking about darker issues. So I'm doing my best to bring you that stuff. Okay, great. Yeah, so very in-depth traumas. Now, it's not just the bad things of sex, it's also sexual liberation with the Pluto and Scorpio generation. This is the generation that begins to bring out the toxic behaviors towards you know, towards homophobia, you know, toxic behavior towards people who have different sexual orientations, and it's people who are born within this generation who are coming out, right, who have had um, trauma as far as their orientation and bringing that more up to the surface at this time. Also just the concepts of sex, the liberation of sex, of women being just as sexual as men being just as, in need of relationship and sexual connection as women. Like everything is starting to equal out as far as the genitals are concerned, because that's what Scorpio is. Scorpio rules over the genitals. So it's men and female. And that's why we also have a lot of topics about changing sex, changing sexual orientations, changing gender. All this is coming out of the woodworks with the Pluto and Scorpio generation, because beforehand it was just so boxed in as to this is how a woman should be, this is how a man should be. And I feel like this is where you find a lot of the feminist movement really taking a spin with this generation, because this generation is has a lot of oversexed um things that come with it, like within the media, the people who grew up within this generation. This is where you're finding a lot of like this generation experienced the internet. If you guys don't know, the internet is mainly used, like most people use the internet for porn. Like there's a statistic around that, right? So this generation was the one who saw the shift of no internet and no computer usage to lots of it. And as you know, or if you don't know, the computer and internet is mainly used for porn. Check that out. Check out the statistics on that. This comes from the Pluto and Scorpio generation. So the expansion of sex, the expansion of sexual pleasures, sexual fetishes, bringing those things more as accepted, bringing these things more as up to the surface, right? So liberation is happening with the Pluto and Scorpio generation when it comes to all of these ideas and concepts. Ty Mims, hi, says yes, death to the concept of how religion teaches us about sexuality and sensualities when it comes to us women. That's right, because the a lot I don't want to make a general saying, but a lot of the religion beliefs are holding women, either the women has been eliminated and they're using different symbologies and different ways of describing the woman, and so you're not able to see it as clearly, right? So women are in like the Bible, and the idea of women and sex is in the Bible, but it's either being interpreted as very shameful, or it's being seen as having to be conservative. So this is what it is. It's about shifting spirituality and sexuality. And so you even have like, when you think about the idea of religion, right? Because when you say religion, a lot of people just think Christianity, Judaism, right? But religion is really just the practice of what you do every day as a habit. So what ends up happening is that you have more sectors and groups of people who are creating a religion out of sex. You're having more ways in which we worship the woman and the woman's body. And so, yes, this generation, it comes out of the woodwork, and so it's free and liberating, but it also goes really, really far left. It can be almost a little too much for some people. It just depends on um, what your limits are, but this generation brings it all out. Lady bosses, Pluto and Scorpio. I like that, Whitney. Yes, lady bosses. Actually, this generation brings out, because before this generation, we do have women, stepping up in a lot of ways, but this generation brings out that boss lady, CEO, executive. Like, yes, absolutely. Because Scorpio is on the axis of Taurus. So Scorpio and Taurus also represent money. Scorpio shared money. So this is where we have, you know, the, yes, I love that. I didn't even think of that or write that down, but the changing of like who has the money, or giving women or gender a shift in who has control of the money within relationships, right? Who's making more money within relationship? Like all of this is just like shifting, right? It's Pluto's bringing death to the older ways of things. So yes, Phoenix rising, Pluto and Scorpio, lady bosses. Absolutely, I definitely think that that's a big Pluto and Scorpio. The chosen one, bringing that out to us. Right. Whitney says, talk about it, not portraying women in our full, natural, divine, feminine, sexual, empowered energy, which we are. That's right. So, this is why this generation is considered oversexed. So, that's really up for debate, because are we oversexed, or is this generation just equaling it out and allowing women to be fully embracing their sexual expression? So, that's the question of all questions. Okay, so remember that Pluto and Scorpio energy specifically actually is centered a lot around crime. Okay, so you'll find people who have, like I said, like this energy, because Pluto's Scorpio's modern ruler, so they're both combined together. This energy is deep investigation, deep psychology, things like that, right? So what are the ways in which you have, how is deep investigation manifested in our current matrix reality? Well, a lot of that is connected to crime and police officer work, detective work. So you'll find that a lot of people in this generation, there's crime that happens with this generation, and it becomes more of a obsession of the psychology behind things like serial killers and people who make crimes, where before it may be, oh, they're just a bad guy, where the Pluto and Scorpio generation brings in the desire to want to investigate the mentality of why someone commits these heinous acts and commits these crimes. So looking more into the psychology of criminals, right? So Pluto and Scorpio generation, they grew up with more crime at the forefront, either within their neighborhood or just within their consciousness, being more desire to understand what are the intentions and desires behind somebody who needs to commit heinous acts, being brave enough, being curious enough to actually look at the darkness of the psyche, is the Pluto and Scorpio generation. So there's a lot that we can say about this. And I mean, maybe because we're a little bit biased, I think a lot of us here are born within this generation. So we have a lot we can contribute to that conversation. But these are the chosen ones, and the chosen ones are found throughout the world today in various generations. That's my whole point in looking at Pluto and just talking about the purpose of each generation. Whitney asks, are more starseed children being born to Pluto Scorpio mystic women so we can show them a spiritual way life to live? I'm going to say I don't know, but I do know that the concept and the idea and the language of the word starseed is spread a lot throughout the Pluto and Scorpio generation, especially since 2012, when we thought the Great Awakening was going to happen. Then that was a big time when starseed was like a hot topic on YouTube and all that. And you can go back and look for it. If, in fact, if you haven't noticed, a lot of people haven't been using that word as much, but it was such a big thing, and it was happening, I would say, between Pluto and Libra and Pluto and Scorpio generations. The concept of star seeds was a lot more popular amongst these two groups of people. So I think in a lot of ways we are looking at breaking cycles of parenting within these generations, and also wanting to break, well, it's specifically with Pluto and Scorpio, the psychology, because it's like, well, if I experience trauma with my parents, then a lot of people, they just repeat it, you know. Um, so why do we repeat it instead of ending it and trying to be different? And I think the Pluto and Scorpio generation, they look more at that than ever before. So breaking cycles within the family. Thank you. Thank you for the conversation, everyone. I'm so glad that you guys like this because I wasn't sure, but it's been something I wanted to talk about. I wanted to give my own spin on the chosen ones. Breaking generational curses. Yes, Scorpio is curses, and Scorpio is occult, right? So breaking all of the generational curses, which comes from the psyche. So breaking the pattern in the psyche to just repeat what your parents did and wanting to stop for a minute and change that, bring death to that and create something new, rebirth to the psyche, rebirth to the psychology of how we look at all political themes, gender, sex, crime. All of those things come with the chosen ones who were born within the Pluto and Scorpio generation. Okay. Okay. So let's move on. We're going to talk about the Pluto in Sagittarius generation. And let's just talk about what they are here to do. And where are they born? Okay, so those who were born between 1995 and 2008 are the Pluto and Sagittarius generation. Okay, these individuals are very big in spiritual pursuits. So it may seem like the Pluto and Scorpio generation are the big spiritualists, while they are the ones that I would say bring out the occult. I feel like the Pluto and Sagittarius are the ones who are redefining, bringing death and redefining the true concept of the guru. And they're the ones who are very big on exploring their spiritual journeys and their spiritual messages and wanting to create different sectors of culture within their actual massive culture. So, like for instance, when you think of Black people, a lot of people will only associate certain ideas of how of language, of conduct and demeanor with just, one way of being Black. And I think that the Pluto and Sagittarius generation, a lot of them are here to, the chosen ones within this generation, are here to establish the fact that there are different sectors of, for example, what it means to be Black, and they don't all match. They're all different because Sagittarius rules over culture. Sagittarius is the explorer and wants to look at the true culture. So a lot of these people are also really desiring to go back to their true heritage, go back to their true roots, to explore different cultures. In the Pluto and Sagittarius generation is where we bring death to the idea of appropriation. And I think that this generation is battling this as we speak because these are the ones who are becoming adults at this time. And so they are the ones who are dealing with the big topics about what is appropriation, what belongs to a culture and what is stealing from a culture, right? They're here to look at where in the past we have done these things. We have stolen from different cultures or completely obliterated different cultures before, as we all know. And so I think that there's a big fear with this generation that they're dealing with repeating those things, those actions, right? So there's a lot of conflict right now with this generation and really trying to discover their true spiritual journeys and also discover what belongs to them in culture and what does not belong to them in culture. Yes. Okay, Sherry says there is a such thing as being Black. Yes, there is a such thing as being Black, but there are different types of Black people and how they like to conduct themselves, how they like to speak, how they like to live their lifestyles. So when we think about Sagittarius, it's culture is music, right? Not all Black people listen to the same type of music. I think that that's why we're dealing with this right now. Remember, Sagittarius is also a mutable sign. It's a sign of change and adaptation. So why is it that a sign that rules over culture is also the end of a season, right? So Pluto is a death and Sagittarius is end of a season, adaptation. So when we talk about culture, we have to understand that culture is constantly changing. It's constantly adapting, right? So my example about Black people is that you have people who consider themselves Afro goth, and then you also have people who like, really grungy music. Some black people love soul music. Some black people love or hate hip hop music. So to put everybody into one category and to say that this is where you belong, this is where we're finding a lot of difficulty. Sherry says no, it's not like it's not how they like to speak it, it's just how they speak. Okay, well, for instance, I'm a Pluto and Scorpio generation, but a lot of people when I was growing up told me that I spoke white. So that's an example, of being able to understand what belongs to people and what doesn't belong to people. So like for instance, what is the name of the white lady who um the white lady who like tanned herself and like pretended to be black? Rachel Dolezal. So that was a big Pluto and Sagittarius conversation, and I'm pretty sure that whole topic happened during a Saturn in Sagittarius transit. Hold on one second. See if I can find when that happened. 2015. So let's see. I'm looking up 2015 right now because that's when that was. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. So Rachel Dolezal, that was a woman, a white woman. That was such a big topic in 2015. A white woman who was portraying herself as a black woman, right? And that was during a Saturn and Sagittarius transit, right? And it was actually right at the beginning of a Saturn and Sagittarius transit. So this is the concept of Sagittarius is culture and what is appropriation. See, the thing about this group of people who were born under Pluto and Sagittarius is that some of them haven't even hit their Saturn returns yet. Right. So some of them are still discovering who they are. So because some of them are still discovering who they are, the generation and the message and the purpose and the power of that message is still trying to discover who it is and what it is. So when you see a generation that hasn't hit their Saturn return, that means that even them as chosen ones have not fully embraced what the purpose is and what the message is of that. Whereas Pluto and Scorpio generation, most of you guys have finished your Saturn return, right? Saturn return is a very big placement because it's going to tell you about, it brings you into maturity, right? So the Pluto and Sagittarius generation has not fulfilled their maturity yet. So they have not yet had any resolution to these ideas of what is right to say about it. So you can argue all you want, but the reason that you're arguing is because the concept behind the Pluto and Sagittarius generation is not mature yet. It's not mature, and so the argument is going to happen. But also, my whole thing is that when you talk about this idea of like what is right and wrong, everybody has a different role to fill. So I'm not going to fight because I know that opposition only makes me more refined. I'm not going to feel a certain way because you disagree, because everything about what you're resisting is what I'm resisting. It's the telling of the times, which is that we are currently in the moment of Pluto and Sagittarius maturing. And so this is why it's more of a conflict. It's more difficult to come to terms with it. So, right. So, well, Sherry, I'm speaking from an astrological point of view. That's the whole idea of this concept. So that's what we're saying. So when we talk about astrology, right, we're thinking beyond just what everybody on a mundane media, I'm not just speaking about Rachel Dolezal in the article. I'm speaking about Rachel Dolezal and the timing of when the planets were and what that means connected to the planets. So that is your Pluto and Sagittarius generation. It's still trying to discover itself. It's still trying to um, understand itself. Whereas, like I said, like Pluto and Scorpio generation, we now have, you know, we have people who now are allowed to be married. Same sex is allowed to be married. These things were not in their mature stage just about 5, 10 years ago, but now they are because this generation has matured, right? So their purpose, the chosen ones have fulfilled their purpose on those concepts, right? When Saturn returns to them, there'll be even more things to discuss. There might be even more things to elevate and upgrade. So we're waiting to see what the Pluto and Sagittarius and the ideas of appropriation, what that really brings to the table, and what it really means. What does it really mean to belong to a certain group of color, or what it means to belong to a certain ethnicity or background, right? So moving on, when we go to Pluto and Capricorn generation, these people are the babies right now. They're the current babies. They're born between, okay, well, sorry. It, no, yes, they're the babies, 2008 to 2024. So some of them are still being born, right? And these people are here to bring down the old traditional structures of businesses, right? So this is considered what we're going through right now. And these children are going to be the ones who start to bring death as their generation already is happening. As they come into the world, you see that death is being brought to old structures of business, right? And government, because Capricorn rules over government, it's the top of the top, right? And their whole purpose, the chosen ones within this group, their whole purpose is to redefine and recreate a new business, a new structure to how we do business and how we govern the people. And can't you see that that is exactly what we're going through right now? Isn't that crazy? Right? So this energy is actually not just happening to us, but it's being brought in by the babies, by the youth that are coming into the world right now and continuing to till 2024. So just wait 29 years from now when they go through their Saturn return, what incredible things are going to occur, right? What the world will be like. Um it will be very difficult to actually even imagine what it could be when we have a new way of governing ourselves. Yes. So thank you guys so much for awesome. I love that. I love that you wow. Okay, great. Thank you guys so much for joining me on the conversation about Pluto and the chosen ones. Please keep writing your comments, share the video. If it's controversial, then share it with somebody and strike up a conversation. I'd love to continue this conversation, and I just love the idea of embracing every age group, because I feel like there's a little bit of a bias that's only like the youth, right? Only the people who are born like in the 80s and beyond. But I'm telling you that everybody is playing a big role right now. And so we looked at Pluto and Virgo up until Pluto and Capricorn and the purpose of these generations and how they're all the chosen ones. Remember that everybody plays a different role. So not everybody's on the same side, but the opposition is what creates perfection, right? It creates pressure, which creates a better outcome. So yes, some people are bad guys and they're the chosen ones too. And so that's kind of my point in this as well. Okay. Yes, Whitney says we are all reincarnated in this time for a reason, and that is very much so the case. We all came here to be witnesses to this major change and to be participants, catalysts, and elevating the change as well. So I wanted to bring this conversation to you guys because Pluto has currently gone direct. When Pluto is in retrograde, it feels like it's a loss of power. When Pluto is going direct, it feels like, excuse me, sorry, it feels like we are regaining our power, moving more forward within our power. So I hope that you guys will take a look at where Capricorn is in your chart. The house that Capricorn is currently in your chart is giving an insight into where your power is now being reinstated, right? And it's time for you to show up and show out, okay? Which means if you got to be the bad guy, then you got to be the bad guy, right? But you're here to go deep and to bring out all the toxic nature that is happening within the area that Capricorn is in your birth chart, okay? And also be sure to check out my Patreon once I'm done with the live. We can continue the conversation there. I'm going to be creating a special video for my Patreon um, supporters called Making Saturn Your Bitch. And that's about how to establish the greatness of your Saturn in your birth chart. That's going to be the next thing that I create for Patreon. So thank you guys so much for joining me. Thank you for the conversation. I really appreciate all the support that you give. And I'll see you guys in the next live. Peace and love.